This week's video is the return of an important message from the past, the return, if you will, of the uncomfortable truth of Mr. Market, where we tackle the age-old question of, if this is going on in the world, how can the stock market keep going higher? So what's up with Mr. Market anyway? Most people don't say Mr. Market, they just want to talk about the market. And it's very simple. At any given point in time, there are scary, tough, heartbreaking things going on in the world. And it just does not make sense to us, for obvious reasons, have these things can go on and how the market can trudge higher. We've shared this message in the commentaries before. It's a very common conversation we have at 10 Capital. We framed it up as talking about Mr. Market. Now, of course, the real punchline of the video is it's not a person. It doesn't act like a person. It doesn't think like a person, at least not a singular person you'd enjoy having over for dinner. So we want to walk through how in this world of global conflict, disruptive technologies, inflation, have we seen such resilience in the market? At any point in time over history, and that's the part of those charts, how have we seen this perpetual resilience within markets with all of these things that, again, are such trials going on all around us? The first main point I want to bring up is that Mr. Market is ruthless. Well, at least he appears to be ruthless. And the reason he appears to be ruthless is he doesn't have any feelings. It is not a person, as I said, who you'd want to come over and enjoy a great dinner with and talk about your life with. Mr. Market, at the end of the day, is really just a calculator. And so looking at him to be emotional, to have some type of human nature to him is really an expectation that's misplaced. You wouldn't talk about your feelings and your emotions to a calculator and then be mad and say this calculator doesn't work when it doesn't, share those feelings and empathize with you. And yet that is, at the end of the day, really what the market is all about. That is why you've seen throughout history markets rally during periods of war. Most people would understandably look at the cost of human life, the destruction to all sorts of aspects of society, while the market is a pretty simple weighing mechanism between the disruptions of production or consumerism versus the increase in production, the increase in government intervention, in monetary supply, etc. Point number two is that Mr. Market is not one person, it's many. We all look at the world through our lens. We assume subconsciously that most people view things in a similar way to us. Mr. Market reflects a lot of different people's viewpoints, a lot of different realities, and they may not always seem to match up with those things that are most important to you. That's why, again, COVID provides us probably some of our best examples. You saw even within the market itself, certain companies thrived that were more tech-based, while other companies that reflected those parts of the economy that got shut down struggled. For anyone in those sectors, that was obviously a very, very hard time, let alone the hard time it was for society. And yet for other companies, they thrived, and they thrived so much that it even offset the weighing burden that other parts of the market felt. Number three is Mr. Market is not the economy. The economy certainly can impact the market. We want to see growth, generally speaking. But again, if you use that COVID timeframe as just the best example of late, you undoubtedly had lots of things around you in your communities shutting down, closing, shrinking, and yet the market was rallying day after day after day in the second part of 2020. How could this be? Well, the economy has got a lot of small businesses within it, a lot of medium-sized business. The benchmark most people follow, the S&P 500, happens to just be the 500 biggest, in a lot of cases, most adaptable companies in the world. So, well, yes, sadly, one of your favorite businesses might have closed around you. That's not going to be reflected in a lot of those big tech names that might make up so much of today's market. The fourth point is a question, well, are you saying then that Mr. Market is always rational? No. To paraphrase that Benjamin Graham quote, that in the short term it's a voting machine, in the long term it's a weighing machine, that again belies that truth of the market as calculator. Yeah, the market can get crazy in a given day. It can get emotion because it is made up of a lot of people, and that herd can certainly move in a certain way on a given day. But what does seem to happen, again, if we think back to COVID, is the market sobers up, gets back to its unemotional state, usually a lot quicker than the rest of us. Well, in the spring of 2020, we were all struggling with any number of different things, as a society. The market was already seeing through the fog, looking at the government intervention, looking at a lot of the new creations, and looking at a lot of the adaptations that companies were bringing to bear, and seeing how productivity would improve, seeing how the economy would go through. So how does this relate to today's market? Well, this is where Matt's going to put up a slide or two that really is just all the various headline news that has occurred over history, overlaid with the market trudging higher and again proving that resiliency. If you look at those, really reflect on them, you'll probably find more than a few headlines that create a lot of consternation, a lot of emotion for you in the moment. And yet, if you go a step back, despite some certain pullbacks over time, you'll see that resiliency. You'll see at work exactly what I'm talking about, which are these headline news that we care about on a personal level and a market that, again, is seemingly indifferent. What else is the market caring about today? Well, as our colleague Stephanie Link shared, it continues to see growth, improved efficiencies, improved margins, and of course, at the end of the day, what the market cares about most, improving profits. To look at it, they see there within the analytic team, US GDP continuing to grow at 2 to 3%. This should result in earnings growth of about 12%, and yet margins, efficiencies, a lot of these technologies may be scary. They're also bringing to bear a lot of efficiencies. And so as we look, as of February 7th, she quotes a number with just about 2/3 of the S&P having reported. 77% of companies have beaten earnings, and the blended earnings growth rate is actually higher than would be normally projected, that 12% number, at 16.4, which would be the highest growth rate of earnings since Q4 of 2021. So again, while we're obviously hoping for the best in Ukraine, looking at the Middle East in a period, seemingly ever-ending period of political strife here in the US, the market is looking at things simply from a numbers and cents standpoint, seeing the good news and moving forward. In closing, by no means am I telling you not to care about your personal situations, not to care about your political sensibilities, not to care about any of the poignant things that might be going on around the world that strike us on a humanitarian level. What I am telling you is that Mr. Market, if someone came over to your house and you were sharing these stories with them and they talked to you about margin efficiencies, you would understandably never invite them back to dinner. Mr. Market is not a great dinner guest. He is a great way to help you and your family build wealth over time. And so while personal trials and politics and these other items that focus our attention and our hearts around the world are absolutely important, it would be counterproductive to let any of those things direct your plans and your portfolios. Rather, let the fruits from your plans and portfolios help direct your actions and your abilities to use your time, talent, and treasure to make the world a better place. We hope this helps, and as always, feel free to reach out.